If you have difficulty, either because there's not funds from the province to do this right, or you can't get your child in here, then, quote, pull a stunt, suicide. It'll get you what you need every time.
I'm in Vancouver today because I have an interview booked with the lawyer of a father who is the father of a transgender child, and the child is suing their own father in a case being heard by the British Columbian Supreme Court. It's a really weird case where effectively the Supreme Court has sided with the child, saying that the father no longer has the authority to deny gonadotropin releasing hormone injections for his own child. Hormone injections that have been proven scientifically to cause huge problems with bone mineralization. It totally destroys fertility. And not to mention, it's a complete crapshoot whether or not this person will have proper executive brain function later in life. It's just a crapshoot. They have no idea whether or not there's any adverse effects later in life. To puberty blockers, effectively, is what this child wants. And the father's saying no. And it's not just that. Buckle up, because the Supreme Court has said that this father is no longer allowed to even try and persuade the kid against it. It's not just that he no longer has the absolute right to deny these hormone injections. He's not even allowed to talk to his kid to say, I don't think you should do that. And the judge said it was family violence if he did. I think this is absolute insanity, and I think that viewers across Canada want to know what is going on in this case, even though the mainstream media doesn't really want to report on the facts. So I'm going to go speak with his lawyer. He's in downtown Vancouver. I'm going to go grab a car and go see him. Can you tell me, why am I speaking with you rather than the father of this child?
Okay. Myself and a lawyer in Abbotsford, Herb Dunton, act for the father. The father is currently, as we sit here, under strict orders. It's called a protection order, that he is not permitted to discuss his child's situation, show any documents about that has anything to do with this to anybody, talk to the public about his overall interest in the whole subject. He can't say a thing. And he's an impassioned man who, in his own way, is holding back a lot of anger at what is being done to his child. And so to avoid further problems, he's not talking to anybody, because we're up against, people don't realize the extent to which the people who are pushing these issues, whatever they be, it's not just gender issues, all kinds of issues that the social justice group are pushing for, this collectivity of identity politics. They don't play fair. They fight, and if they see a chance to go in and get somebody hit, because this case and this man, my client, is challenging them as they've never been challenged, and we're going for broke. This is not a once-a-day thing, and these questions have never been dealt with by the Supreme Court of Canada.
Why does the father not want this to go forward?
Good point. The father's position is that he says he knows his child. And he knows, it's not just a belief or a fantasy, he knows the child does not appreciate what she's getting herself into. He knows that she doesn't understand the incredibly high suicide rates, all the things that can happen, becoming infertile, not being able to go back. He knows that 80% of children, school-aged children, anywhere from 80 to higher, if they're allowed to go through puberty, they come out in their older teenage years and they abandon the idea. He knows those as a fact. So his position is, wait till she turns 18, she can do what she wants with my blessing, but not now.
Now tell me, you're one of the few faces on this case. Like I said, you're the only name we could actually get. And people are accusing you of being a transphobe. You were telling me earlier. What do you have to say to that? Those accusations?
Well, it's pitiful. As I say, when somebody is 19 and they want to go off and do whatever they want, hey, all the more power to them. If somebody does that and they come out and they have a happier life, if somebody says, 10 years ago I transexed or I transgendered and I got rid of all those problems, I've never been so happy in my life, fantastic. Hey, good for you. That took bloody guts. But as I say, there's that mound hidden in the shadows of decaying corpses of all the kids who commit suicide. Not just the kids, the ones that grow up in their 50s and 60s. They realize they've made a mistake. They can't handle their life. It's phenomenal, that number. And it's known and it's accepted, but you don't talk about it. I doubt very much that this child was ever told by any of the people on this process she had to go through to get cleared, whatever that was. And I personally don't quite understand that yet, but I will. I doubt that she was ever told of the increased risks to her suicide.
So what are the next steps for this case?
Did I say on the record, I don't know, I was talking to you earlier about a couple of facts. Let me put them out there. That one of the things on the question of suicide, the father has filed an affidavit in the court that was before Justice Mazzari and is going to be argued on the 14th of May as fresh evidence in the Court of Appeal, which we don't know when that's going to happen, that the child came to the dad just before the court proceedings in February of 2019 and said to the dad, if you don't let me have these drugs, I'm going to kill myself. And the way the dad explains it, verbally, you can read it, was he sort of said, you're not going to kill yourself, don't give me that. To which the child said, yeah, I know, but I was told to say that. So that's a piece of evidence in this whole.
Told to say that by who?
We can only assume.
All right.
We can only assume but there's one further fact that we have, and that is that and I may have said this before, but I can't remember if I said it to you. The psychologist involved gave a talk to in the Vancouver Public Library on the day after the judgment came down, on the 28th of February, in the Vancouver Public Library. The psychologist involved gave a public talk to a group of family people, parents, who were curious as to what's going on with their kids. Not just curious, scared, some of them, and upset and afraid. What's happening here? And one of the things that he said, and I quote you, we've got the transcript, it's all there, was in describing how if you have difficulty, either because there's not funds from the province to do this right, or you can't get your child in here, then, quote, pull a stunt, suicide. It'll get you what you need every time. So that's an extraordinary thing for any professional to say. Never mind that what this doctor may be doing is requesting people to commit an offense, a fraud against the taxpayers. I mean, it's a whole bunch of implications you have going on in there that may or may not apply. But when you combine this particular doctor, who we know was the coach of this child to get him from where he was through, says that, and the child says, I was told to say it, it's looking awfully messy from the other point of view and other side, and that's why I think they're in a bit of a panic. That's why they don't want anybody to know anything. They want to cover the whole thing up. They want the courtroom doors locked, and just get on with whatever they're doing, and who knows what they think they're doing.
In about a minute or less, can you tell me where is this case now and where is it going?
The case right now is on its way to the Court of Appeal. Nothing's really going to happen until we get to the Court of Appeal. We have a hearing set up on the 14th of May to have one part of the case where we need permission to go to the Court of Appeal, but on the essence of the case, there's two actions. That's already in the Court of Appeal. We haven't got a date, so we'll get an expedited date. In the Court of Appeal, there will be arguments about technicalities, failure to produce documents on time, not following the rules, not supporting evidence, unsworn material, expert evidence that shouldn't have been admitted, and primarily the complete rejection by the hearing chambers judge to allow my client and Mr. Dutton, who was on at that time before I got on the scene, to have, they only wanted 45 days. 45 days is not going to make a difference in anybody's life, unless you got cancer, to organize proper evidence, because the expert opinion is mounting constantly, and it's not in favor of the other side. There's a little bit of evidence, but it's very hard to find scientific, provable, verifiable, evidence-based data which supports anything the other side is saying. And there's a lot of it on the other side, which doesn't mean that there's not merit to looking at a child who thinks that they're the opposite gender and has a problem in their biology rather than they've just watched too much TV.
Whose rights would you say you're trying to protect? I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think it's just the father's. I think that you're protecting the rights of the child.
Yeah.
To have an informed person who cares about them unconditionally, to make decisions on their behalf, as parents do.
Yeah.
Kids can't get braces on their own without their parents' consent. They can't get, the state can't mandate vaccinations against polio, but they can mandate these gonadotropin hormone injections. I think it's crazy. Whose rights are you trying to protect?
Well, I think fundamentally the basic right is the right of freedom of speech. And incorporated in all that are the others. And freedom of speech includes the father's right to tell and talk to and advise and help and foster a child into the world. So it's freedom of speech which is the big issue.
It's pretty clear that this case is going to have wide-reaching implications for Canadians everywhere. It's no longer just about the father and the child anymore. It's about every Canadian who wants to protect their right to freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of conscience. It's all on the line here with this case, and I don't trust the mainstream media to cover it fairly. I don't trust the mainstream media to give the father a fair shake at it, but I also don't trust the mainstream media to tell you the truth, to tell you the full, unedited story about what's going on in that courtroom. I'm going to make sure to cover every last bit of it. It's just a one-man show, me here with my backpack and my camera, talking to lawyers, talking to the people who know what's going on. If you want to stay up to date and apprised with what's going on here in this case, go to www.rebelinvestigates.com. If you want to pitch in to help me cover the car ride from the airport to the lawyer's office or my airline ticket from Calgary to Vancouver, that would be much appreciated. I want to be in the courtroom when this happens so that I know what happened and so that I can tell you what happened. For the Rebel.media, I'm Keean Bexte. Hey there, thanks for watching my coverage here in Vancouver, British Columbia. I live in Calgary, so it was a bit of a hike to get over here today. If you want to keep me on the road, keep me covering stories like these, please go to rebelinvestigates.com, pitch in a few bucks so that I can keep telling you the truth, the side of the story that the mainstream media just doesn't want you to hear.